My son came home crying. His teacher chopped off his hair without permission. My name is Dana R. Keenan, and I have always known that the manner in which a child is raised not only shapes who they grow up to be, but also how they perceive this beautiful world of ours. Please like and subscribe Revenge YouTube channel. I was raised on the quiet streets of Maryland Heights, Missouri, in a small ranch-style house where laughter and discipline wove in and out like threads in a tightly knit tapestry. My parents were hard-working, single-minded in their determination to provide a settled life, but few concessions came from life, and the world at large felt sometimes harsh, judgmental, and merciless. Dating back as far as I can recall, I was empathetic with other people's feelings. When my schoolmates fought, I experienced their fear and befuddlement as intensely as if it were mine. If a neighbor lost someone special, I would feel an ache of loss that kept me up for hours. My parents mired that one in me, also supporting it sometimes, while other times warning me against being too soft. But I could not turn off what was in my nature. Empathy was my North Star, the way I moved through life, and it would be both my superpower and my Achilles heel. Art became my refuge. I'd spent hours with pencils and torn pieces of paper, drawing faces, trying to get expressions right, and inventing stories that lay behind each pair of eyes. It was a form of the world I could handle, literally shape with my hands. My sketches were imperfect. They were raw and real and alive with feeling. Each line was a heartbeat. Each shadow whispered a secret. And even though my parents were concerned that this preoccupation with drawing would turn me away from practicality, I also knew something else. Art wasn't just a hobby for me, but my entryway into the world. It was how I interpreted people, and eventually, it became the way I turned my passion into career success. I knew early on that life could be cruel, especially to anyone perceived as vulnerable. One thing in particular stayed with me. When I was 7 years old, a girl from my class taunted me mercilessly about my frizzy hair. I had pleaded with my mother to let me cut it, assuming the teasing would end, but she forced me to embrace it. I learned that day a lesson I would never forget. The world will judge you, sometimes unjustly, but integrity, self-respect, and fortitude are the armor within. It's a lesson that would reverberate with unimaginable force one day, when my own child was violated and left heartbroken. In high school, I had developed my creative genius so much that my sketches were not only a hiding place anymore. They were how I communicated. Teachers noticed my gift, and I would frequently assist classmates in annotating moments that they felt but could not articulate. Yet as the accolades piled up, I never lost my empathetic view of people. Their fears and joys, their struggles, were stitched threads in the larger tapestry I was trying to make sense of. My own life influenced the way I looked at things too. I had friends, but I was inward-looking much of the time. A witness watching more than engaging, and learning from others firsthand about human conduct in other arenas in life. My family wanted me to gain security, but I revolted against a life of predestination. Art required risk, intuition, and the bravery of vulnerability, all characteristics I took with me into adulthood, through my career, and finally unto motherhood. Motherhood, I came to realize, was empathy's most difficult challenge and love's greatest test. My son, center of my universe, was born with a mild inquisitiveness and tender heart that matched my own. From the second I became one of his limbs, I was a changed woman. Every decision I made, every move I took, would send ripples through his life. To protect him was instinctive, fierce and uncompromising. I promised him under my breath that he would never be exposed to the pain I had experienced, while at the same time teaching him what it felt like and how to reclaim his own power through resilience, self-worth, and having a voice. But life has a way of trying even the most seasoned hearts. Not in all that time did I imagine the day he came home crying, his trust and dignity shattered by someone who should have been his protector, not his abuser. That day would be the catalyst for every lesson I'd been taught, every instinct I'd practiced, and every ounce of courage I could muster as a mother. It would forever redefine me, my son, and the bond we shared. I was only 23 when I turned my childhood dream into a professional reality. As a sketch artist with Blue Boar Cafeterias, I spent my days engrossed in the observation of people, space, and emotion, which was then translated into complex drawings that sophisticated life's nuance. Each project afforded me the ability to capture stories, small human dramas, moments of joy and fleeting expressions, but which frequently went unobserved by others. My work became an extension of my empathy, a method to honor the emotions and lives that surrounded me. But nothing gave me a greater sense of purpose than being a mother. My son was born like the sun coming out from behind the clouds, all soft, curious, and amazed. From each of his first cautious steps to his very early scribblings on paper, I nurtured both the bounds of my toddler's creativity as fiercely as I did his heart. We were all in a rhythm, a dance of routines, reading before bed, doodling together, and a ringing house full of laughter. I loved to soak in these moments, relishing the image of him out there in the world wide-eyed, explaining how to see beauty where once I had sketched it, and helping him learn about kindness and respect and strength. Every giggle, every question, every embrace told me that being a mother was more than care, more than protecting from injury. It was the molding of a soul, the fortifying of emotion, and the protection of a spirit I had sworn to guard at all costs. But little did I know that this idyllic rhythm of our days would be broken, and in a way, neither one of us could imagine then, by a single reckless act that forced me to put everything I had learned, everything I believed about love and protection, and standing up for what's right in the face of staggering legal odds. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon. A kind of day that just feels routine and safe and predictable. I was at work, had bent over my sketches for a new cafeteria layout, and in my mind's ear I could hear the narrative flowing back between lines and measurements to indicate those kinds of details only someone like me would notice. My pencils scratched against the paper in a soothing rhythm that effectively muffled the noise of life on the other sides of the walls. Then my phone buzzed. A school message. "Your son is upset, Dana. Please call home." A chill ran through me. There was something about the phrasing that gave me pause, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I dropped what I was doing and my heart was beating, and I was running all the exchange scenes in my head at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Before I even opened the door to my car, I saw him. There he was, tiny and fragile, his backpack askew on his small shoulders, his hair all raggedy and uneven. It wasn't just the hair, though. It was the look on his face that I couldn't seem to tear myself away from. Red-rimmed eyes, quivering lips and accusing gaze that cut into me harder than anything else in my life. "Mom, they cut my hair," he would whisper. I dropped to my knees beside him, struggling for composure as I fought against the storm of rage and disbelief that threatened to spill across my features. Who did this, baby?" I whispered softly, my hands mini tremors as they reached to touch of him hair. "My teacher, without asking you. She said it was too long. I didn't want it. I didn't want it cut," he sobbed. I felt an icy tidal wave of anger and grief roll over me. It wasn't just a haircut. It was learning to speak your truth and having it fall on deaf ears, because an adult you knew you could trust didn't grant that sanctuary. Every instinct I had as a mother was to protect him, to call for accountability, to ensure this never happened again. I hugged him, ran my fingers through the choppy hair. "It's okay, my love. Your hair doesn't define you. You are courageous, you are strong, and you are loved. I'm going to fix this. And I mean it. I am going to make sure this gets made right." He clung to me and cried, and I felt welling my own tears. I was thinking of my own childhood, the times I had felt powerless, silenced, or dismissed, and with a sinking heart, understood that at that very moment my son had just been subjected to that same violation. I understood that this was more than just a moment of absent-mindedness. It would be a test for both of us, our trust and my ability to fight for him. That evening, after he'd gone to sleep, I was in our living room with nothing but my sketchpad on my lap. And despite running my hands over the pages again and again that night, I couldn't find an ounce of peace in what I had created. I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. The teacher's casual dismissal, the look of heartbreak on my son's face, and the lesson that had been thrust on him about control, power, and respect. I leaned back and simmered with a slow burn, for I knew this was one battle I could not walk away from. The dignity of my son had been taken, and it was my job, my right as his mom, to give it back to him. In the quiet, leaden night, I promised myself and him that I would not be silent. If it was my son who'd been targeted, I would go to the school and demand accountability that would involve not blaming him. This should have provided an opportunity for me to explain to the boy that his feelings were precious, that his body and choices were his own, and he had a mother who wouldn't let anyone violate that. It was under his dignity to do so. I sent someone, and on the following morning took him with me to the academy. I could not get a hold of the teacher and the principal, so instead I called all day until I finally got someone at the school to give her/her principal message that an emergency conference would be needed immediately as they did something really bad. I said it simply, but every word was freighted with the fire of a mother defending her child. "What happened yesterday is unacceptable. My son's hair was cut without my consent. This isn't a simple haircut issue. It is about respect, boundaries, and trust." He came home crying. "This cannot happen again." The teacher attempted to defend herself with school policy, but I wasn't having it. Policies never allow someone to infringe on the autonomy of a child, I insisted. He is my son, and he has his own body and his own beliefs. You crossed the line. The principal jotted notes and an apology was proffered, but I understood that the real work had only just started. I wouldn't let this go to waste. I would fight to make sure my son knew that he had a voice, and that it counted. that injustice could be fought against, even when it carried the full weight of authority. I'd followed up him to confront school kids and now focused my attention on my son. At home, we spent hours drawing together and making worlds where he was always in control, safe and respected. And each sketch, each line, was a small act of reclaiming his sense of self. I whispered to him, reminding him that he mattered and no one could rob him of his dignity. His tears gradually becoming hesitant smiles, and his fear breaking into laughter. We began to heal through art, conversation, and love. His trust in the world, and more important at that moment, in me having been restored. My son's confidence returned, and I found myself thinking of my own childhood. The times when I had felt powerless or silenced or dismissed. I knew those trials had made me into the kind of fiercely empathetic and protective person I wanted to be. And now, as a mother, they could help guide him. I shared tales with him softly, revealing the power of perseverance, self-esteem, and speaking up for oneself. And in helping him to do that, I didn't just comfort my son and repair my relationship with the upset preschooler as he graduated from nursery school a few months later. I also shared some lessons learned the hard way. Wisdom gained from screwing up badly, not unlike how we dads often need help parenting our boys. Days later, the school requested a parent-teacher conference to discuss what had happened. I came with my son at my side, resolved that this time our voices would not just be heard but matter. I steered myself back from the edge to speak, balancing measured words with a razor-sharp perspective on how much the teacher's actions had affected me emotionally. This is not a small thing, I told you. My son's trust was broken. His feelings were dismissed. No policy justifies abuse of a child's dignity. Accountability must be taken seriously. Other parents listened, some nodding in recognition, others fidgeting and knowing how often power can hurt silently. The teacher apologized, reluctantly, and the principal promised increased supervision to avoid a repetition of the incident. As I walked out of that meeting, I was filled with equal parts relief and resolve. This was more than a hair issue. It had to do with teaching my son that injustice can be challenged, and that his voice counts and he has the right to be treated with respect. In confronting him, I taught him the power of standing strong, the value in making our voices heard, and how much strength can be derived from defending what is rightfully yours. Following the school challenge, I made it a mission to completely help my son regain his confidence. We turned our house into a little sanctuary of creativity and soul. Afternoons were for drawing, constructing imaginary realms in which he was always safe, always in control, and always respected. I suggested that he draw his feelings, create narratives with colors and shapes, and imagine a world where no one could take away his choices. I began to slowly see the light return to his eyes. The laughter got a little easier, and his tiny hands moved with great purpose across paper, no longer shaking from the trauma of invasion. With these works of creativity, I strengthened a crucial lesson. No one can steal our dignity unless we give it up. And even errors that cut to the core are things we can turn to advantage. Every streak he sketched was an assertion of power. Every smile a triumph over terror. We rallied to build back up not just his self-efficacy, but also our deep trust in one another. A bond rooted in empathy, love, and resilience. In the weeks to follow, As our world got back into a routine, I would often ponder what happened. What started off as a painful, simple act, my son's hair being cut against our wishes, became an unexpected lesson in love, bravery, and advocacy. Further, I realized that motherhood is not only to provide care, food, or guidance. Protecting a child's inner world, validating their feelings, and standing up fiercely when they can't. I realized that sympathy wasn't enough. Pity didn't move the poor. Sometimes love demands confrontation. Sometimes it demands unyielding resolve.